For this conversation, I am joined by Eddy Chen, a photographer from LA who has shot behind the scenes on productions like Euphoria, The Idol, and White Lotus. During this conversation, we talk about how he is pioneering a new way of making pictures on set, the story behind the Euphoria key art, and how why being a nice person might just be the most important skill you can have in his industry. Enjoy this chat with Eddy Chen. We were just kind of briefly talking about it just then, but I would love to know kind of what you've been up to recently. I know you've had a busy couple of months.
Yeah, Q1 was interesting this year. And, we're all like, I was thinking about this the other day. A lot of us doing, stuff in the entertainment industry, we're all like gig workers. And Q1 was like so slow. But I came off a really hectic year. And so it was nice to have some downtime. But I feel like I'm always in that mindset of like, if I have like a week off, I'm like looking for the next thing. Like, oh my God, what's the next project? What am I doing next? And it was
the
like
freelancer dread.
Yeah, whether it's that or just like, I need to shoot something. I want to be shooting something. And it's a combination of all that, but it was pretty slow. And then once Q1 was kind of wrapping up in March, I knew I was going out to Lisbon with Sid Sweeney to work on Custom of the Country. And that's a period piece. It was so beautiful to shoot, just so much custom, costumes, and the wardrobe was amazing, and just the production value. I feel like it's always so good on period pieces because of that, just the production value with like whether it's costumes, the wardrobe, even the period cards and stuff like that. So the set deck, all of that was like amazing for a photographer to capture. And also Lisbon, I don't know if you've ever been, but such rich history. And so a lot of the locations we shot in, it's like, holy cow, you guys didn't even have to set this up. This is just how it looked. So that was really fun. And that was several weeks. I was like 3 weeks on that. And then I went to the south of France where they're shooting the White Lotus. And I was on that out there for like a month. And that was also a really fun project. And then got back from that and then went out to Australia, just got back for Netflix, and that was a cool project too, because they're so different. I think each project is so different, and there's a lot of that creative freedom to kind of like explore and decide like how I want to shoot this and what format I want to capture this on, what film stock, if I'm shooting film. It's really fun for me because I'm not doing the traditional unit. I could be a little bit more expressive in how I want to, capture all this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, last time we spoke, you mentioned a term that I hadn't heard before, and I guess you called it an embedded photographer.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that in this context, and I'd love to know how you define the difference between a traditional unit photographer and an embedded photographer, and what you do and what you're able to do that maybe a unit photographer can't.
I think we made that term up.
Really?
My rep, I think she maybe was the one that kind of made that term up. Like, oh yeah, we'll call you like an embed, like you become like an embedded photographer and you'll do a couple weeks on this project and a couple weeks on that project and just go in on some of the bigger, weeks where there's like when they're filming more, the bigger scenes. And so, yeah, I think that's how she kind of came up with that term, like embedded. I don't really know what's called embedded, but we'll call it embedded for now.
I mean, it works. The definition you just gave, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Because you're able to, like you said, kind of dip in and out, and you're not there from beginning to end of a production. You're there to kind of capture the highlights, but also like these big moments, and then you can leave and go to another set.
This business model, if we want to call it that, whatever, was kind of created with my friend Sid Sweeney, when she started bringing me on to her projects. And I feel like a part of the embedded aspect is she brings me in and, she introduces me to her castmates. And then all of a sudden I'm very a part of, that production, or she grants me that kind of access. And I feel like that's what makes me like this embedded, photographer, the shooter on the production. Yeah, it's like, it's different, and there's similarities to a traditional unit photographer. So I started doing stills. I got into the union in 2012, and the union is, the International Cinematographers Guild, Local 600. That's like the union that you need to be a part of. And that was a big goal of mine, getting into that union. And I think they give you 3 years. You have to do 100 days non-union work to kind of, as your prereq, to kind of get in. So I got in, and I felt like I achieved this big goal I set out to achieve, and I'm set now. And then so I started working on TV shows, union TV shows, and shooting that. And I think in the beginning it was a lot of like sitcoms. I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one of them that I worked on for years. Glee was another one of them. And you go on set a few times a week, and you're just there capturing stills for the show, for the photo department of the network and stuff like that. And after, I think, 3 or 4 years, I started to feel like, oh, this is a grind, man, because you're on set like, a lot. And although I have to say, stills, it's like, I feel like we have the best job. You're technically the only person on set that could be taking photos. That's your whole purpose. That's your role, to take photos. So it's cool. You could capture, in scene, behind the scenes, whatever. You're the only person that's allowed to have a camera to capture, document all this stuff. So I love that aspect of it. But some of the guidelines that I got from the networks, it was hard to believe. They gave you these like photo guidelines, like please shoot in straight axis, like, straight frames. And I'm thinking like, that's so rigid, but I followed those guidelines, and I shot those images, and I turned it in. And after a while, and I stuck with it for a while, I think like 3 or 4 years, I was feeling really burned out. I was like, this is tough, man. Like, it's becoming a grind. I'm not really enjoying it. There's not much creativity because you're not really, creating anything, right? You're just going in and trying to document what somebody else has created, their vision. And so I feel like that was really, eating away at me. Like, how do I just set myself apart? I'm really good friends with Ben Morris. He's an amazing fashion photographer from London, and he was like a mentor of mine, and I assisted him. He's like a very editorial, very kind of like loose and fluid photographer. He shoots a lot on film. And he knew I grew up with film, and, I grew up shooting film. And so he really inspired me to he told me, he's like, look, you're not going to pivot out of entertainment photography into fashion. You're so deep into entertainment. So why don't you just shoot more loose and editorially on set? Like, fuck the guidelines. Just do you, yeah, maybe shoot what they want you to shoot, but also shoot something for yourself. Always shoot something for yourself. I feel like that was a very important kind of, lesson he taught me. And so I did. I started taking my film cameras to set, and, and I'll shoot like Dutch angles, and I'll, put a finger in front of the lens and shoot dirty, shoot it really shallow. So you're kind of like, is this like film bleed, or is this something in front of the lens, And so just keep the audience kind of like the viewer kind of guessing, like, and the whole thing is trying to make interesting images, right? Like, you want to make it look interesting. You don't want to just capture like something that's just, like so obvious. And I started doing that, and I would shoot a couple of rolls of film, and I would turn it in. I'll pay for it myself. And then the network started noticing. They're like, oh, hey, what is this? You would tell them, it's like, oh, I just shot a couple of rolls of film. They're like, this stuff looks great. There's so much more texture, and,
So would you sneak them in on the side of the main photos, or would it be a separate thing? But like, by the way, I also shot these.
Yeah. I would make it very clear to them, like, hey, I shot a couple rolls of film. It looks great on film. It translates better on film, or whatever I said to them, and they bought it, and that's the other thing I learned. It's a lot of times like you have to sell your vision too. It's like sometimes it comes to that. You have to like sell, what you're shooting, and, kind of make them see what you're seeing. And that was the first time I did that was for a show called Animal Kingdom. It was based on a movie, Australian movie, and they made a TV show, of course, out of it. And that photo department back in the day, Turner, TNT photo department, was like, they're very outside of the box. So it was an easy sell to them. Like, hey, let me shoot some film and da-da-da. And I turned it in and they loved it. And they're like, okay, shoot more film. We'll give you a budget, because I was like, you got to pay for it this time. It's like, that was just a little taste. And they were into it and they started paying for it. And then, got some really cool photos out of that and started to feel like, oh, I'm, doing something a little bit more creative, a little different. And then in 2018, I got a call from HBO and they had a pilot that was coming up. And that photo editor saw some of the stuff I did on Animal Kingdom. He saw some of the film stuff and he was like, oh, I think film will really match like the aesthetic of this really young show. And, it's with a young cast. It's a pilot called Euphoria. And I was like, yeah, I'm super down to do that. That'd be cool. And, it was like with Zendaya. And I think she was like the real big name in that show at the time. So I did that and shot film on it and they loved it. The season got picked up and shot a lot of digital because the show was shot on digital on the first season. They shot on like Alexa 65s. And it was cool because it was such a look, right? It was... the camera movements were something I've never seen before on a TV show, and shooting on Alexa 65s wide open, it was just like really shallow depth of field. And so I shot digi on my Fujis, but then I shot a lot of film too, and it worked out really well. And HBO loved all the film stuff. And then for season 2, I think one of the only notes I got was like, just please shoot more film, shoot all the film you want. And that was really fun for me. And then the show also shot on film, so it just kind of aesthetically all matched up. And it was kind of like the rest was history after that. It was HBO. They're really good at marketing and they think really outside of the box, and they just use a lot of the film images for marketing. Season 2, I feel like was a game changer for me. I think when those images went out, when the key art went out, people start to see like, oh, you could shoot unit like differently. It doesn't always have to be just these like really sterile, clean digital images that the A camera is capturing. You could go off to do other angles, and you could shoot film. And I shoot a lot of flash on set, and I think a lot of times sets are these dark places in studio, and so it's not very common for people to bring a camera on set and start using flash to set just regular stills apart from something a little bit more candid, and so it's just different. And then I went on to The Idol. That was another HBO show. It's another Sam Levinson show. And I just shot so much film on that. I shot that show all on Cinestill because I wanted to try something different, because I shot all of Euphoria on Kodak. And so I thought, I'm going to try to shoot on a different stock just to, start experimenting, just trying something different.
From project to project, how much information do you get about what you're shooting? And then how does what you're shooting help you prepare in terms of like all the cameras and the gear that you want to choose?
That's a good question. I feel like every project is case by case. There are some projects that I feel like, yeah, I need to use digi, so I'll shoot digi. But obviously my preference is film, and I just like the analog look better. Because even when I shoot digi, it's like I spend all this time like in post trying to make it less digital, and so
more like film.
Yeah, and so when I have the opportunity to just go in it shooting film, that's what I'll choose. But nothing against digital. I think digital has, its benefits.
Let's get specific. What's your go-to? What are you taking to every set? And what, like Fuji, which Fuji?
So for season 3 Euphoria, that was kind of the last kind of traditional unit, project I did. And for digital, I been shooting Fuji digital on that set since season 1. And so season 3, I was using X-T5 and then XH2S and all Fuji lenses. I have all their prime lenses, and I think their prime lenses are amazing. I really, really enjoy the colors of Fuji, and I also do think it's the least digital looking of all the digital cameras these days. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
Sony looks super digital, and I just don't like the colors. The outside, you get out of the box. I like Nikon too. I grew up shooting Nikon, and so I transitioned into Nikon digital when I started my unit career. And when I do marketing shoots, I'm always using Nikons like the Z8, Z9s. The Z glass these days are amazing. All the mirrorless glass is just, they've done wonders with it. It's just so incredibly sharp. For marketing purposes, I guess that's a good thing, but I still try to cut them down in post. Like, I'll add grain, and, I'll put like black pro mist filters on it, or just to cut it a little bit. Otherwise it's just like almost like clinically sharp, or and it's too sharp for me sometimes. So I like the Fujis for set stuff, but my film kit these days it's I use Contax G2s with flash, usually for behind the scenes stuff. I'll shoot black and white film. I'm a big proponent of black and white film. I love black and white photography. I think black and white behind the scenes photos will be timeless. They'll always, be something you can look at, and they'll look great in whatever era it is. And then for kind of in scene stuff, I'll use my Leica M cameras. I love the M lenses. I think it's a different way of shooting also. And in all the seasons of Euphoria, it was funny because I just saw Marcel Rev, our DP on Euphoria, talk about how between, I think, him and Sam, their rule was to like approach every season vastly different in how they shoot it. And it's funny because I feel like that's exactly like the philosophy you should adopt with ongoing projects. Just try something new and different, like why not? Because something. I feel like sometimes people think like, if it's not broke, why fix it? But it's like, you have these beautiful sets, like why not try something different? And we're obviously always after the pursuit of making it beautiful, right? And so that goes without saying. So just shoot it differently. And I think from season 1 to 3, my stills look so different. And I think that's something to be, proud of. You're also, in a way, experimenting on somebody else's dime, right? Like, it's like, that's kind of amazing. It's like, yeah.
So with the images that you take behind the scenes, or the marketing material, is there like a specific name for those photos?
Are you talking about like for the poster or something?
Yeah.
So for the poster, they usually call that the key art, or the one sheet. Yeah. And a good story with season 2 Euphoria key art was it's that photo of Zendaya standing there. And so I remember being on set that day, like super vividly. Sam and Marcel were still lining up the shot, and we were on set in the studio, and we were shooting through like the window of her bedroom. And so, it's obviously a facade, and, it's a window, and then she's standing in the bedroom. I had my Nikon F6 in a blimp with, I think it was a 58mm lens on there, the Nikon 58. And I was just like standing at the edge of like the windowsill, and I think I was like on my tiptoes because I had to like kind of get up on it. And then Z was like standing there, in the middle of the room, and they were still dialing the light on her. And then I think one shot she was like on her phone, and I was like tapping on the window. I'm like, let me get a photo of you. It's really cool. And then so she like dropped the phone on the bed, and then behind her, and then she just stood there. And at first she was just like, she's kind of a goofball. It's really funny to work with Z on set. I think she had her arms up on one shot. I think I took a series of like maybe 3 or 4 photos. I only had like that window to do it. And then for 2 shots, she like dropped her arms and kind of like cocked her head to the side. And then that was it. And I was like, dude, that's going to look so fucking sick.
Are you aware of that? The photos that you're taking could be used as a way of extending the kind of cultural resonance of a show like that? Because I feel like oftentimes your photos, or someone like you that's taking those kind of photos, once they get shared, they're often the first images that people see of a new show, or a show they've never seen before. It might be the first thing, and it has an impact on how people, on the storytelling of the show itself, but also the photos and the wider cultural vibrations around a show. Are you aware of that at all when you're taking the photos?
That's a great question. I don't think I was aware to that extent. when I was taking that photo, but I knew that photo was going to be something special. I was like, this is going to look so cool. And a couple months after I took that photo, like two months or almost 3 months after, I got a call from HBO, the photo editor, Ashley, and she was like, hey, I gotta tell you something. I'm like, what's up? She's like, they're gonna use one of your shots for the marketing campaign. And I was like, is it the one of her standing in the room with the orange light on her? So I like knew right away. And then she's like, yes. And I was like, sick. And yeah, that was like a super memorable moment for me. It was like a full circle moment, because like when I was taking those photos, I was like, this is going to look so cool. And it ended up being the key art. They didn't really retouch it. They just they cropped it. That's all. Wow. They just cropped it. And I guess I started shooting on Leica cameras on set for Idol, which was right after filming season 2 Euphoria. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something different. And Leicas do have a look. I don't care what people say. Like they just have such a look, whether you shoot it wide open or you have to shoot it, F11, F16, because, you're tapped out on the shutter speed. It's just such a different look for me. And to be honest, I love shooting rangefinders on set. I feel like, especially because of how quiet they are, like it's just a little click. There's no mirror slap. You could get away with shooting during a take. And that's special to me, because sometimes you'll get that performance, obviously, when you're shooting them during a take. Even though I feel like a lot of the greatest images could be captured right before a take starts and then right after the director yells cut, because they're still in that moment or coming out of it, and you could get this really nice, genuine, organic, candid photo of them kind of in character. And again, it leaves the audience or the viewer kind of guessing like, oh, is this in scene or behind the scenes? And
like with the photo you just talked about with Zendaya, you obviously were on that set for a while, and you've that's season 2, so you've already built a relationship with her. How do you approach talent in general, but also how do you approach talent maybe the first time that you've shot them? Because I understand, every actor's different, everyone has got a different process, every set's different, every crew's different, everyone is going to react to you taking those photos differently. So how do you approach each set and each moment?
Euphoria, because the cast was so young, and Zendaya too. I think when I met her, she was like 20, but she's a pro, like through and through. And so I remember even really intense scenes in season 1, I'll be really close and I would ask her like, hey, is this good for you? And she's like, yeah, do your thing, and she just acted like I wasn't there, which was amazing. So once, you get that from them, then like your boundaries. I mean, there's still a boundary. Like I would never, get in her face like 24/7. I would shoot a couple of takes, like if I'm in her face, and then get out. Like, and as a photographer, you got to know when you got the shot. It's like, especially on set, like I don't understand the need to like shoot every take, and sometimes there's like 10 plus takes. Like you don't need to shoot 10 plus takes. Like get it and get out, So yeah, I think it was, for the rest of the cast, they were young, they were excited to be there. That's also another reason I like shooting shows with a younger cast, or YA shows. I did The Summer I Turned Pretty, and that was like such a also special experience. The cast was on season 3, and I went in there, and it also helps if it's like the director brought me in on that one, and so everybody respects her, and it was an easy kind of like in with the cast when the director is like, oh, I brought him on because he did the Euphoria stuff, and I want him to shoot you like that. And so and you have to be personable, you have to be friendly, and so it was that's usually how I approach it. You be yourself, and like I always go to set, when I'm on set, I have like 6 cameras hanging off of me, like 3 around my neck. And then people are like, holy shit, you look like Dennis Hopper from Apocalypse Now, And so I think that's always a conversation starter. And these days people get excited when they see that you're shooting film. And so it's always like, oh, what are you shooting? What's that camera? That. And so you create this rapport and relationship with them. And then all of a sudden, they allow you into that circle. And to me, being on set, getting the photos that I like to get which is like very up close and personal with flash. Like you need that kind of access. So you need to create that rapport, that friendship, and then they let you in, and then half the job is kind of done, you know?
But that relationship is also with the crew as well, right? Because they also have a job to do, and you stepping in that moment could pause whatever they're doing for,
right.
10 seconds, 15 seconds, a minute.
You have to be conscious of that. I try to ingratiate myself with the crew, especially camera department, just because I essentially am a part of the camera department. But I've been really fortunate. Like it takes a village to do what we're doing, to make, a beautiful end product. And I feel everybody has that in mind.
And you mentioned that the big moments, the big days on set are kind of what you're there for. Do you ever say like, if I'm not scheduled to come in on that day, but I would love to come in because that would be a great day to shoot? Do you ever have any say in what you get to shoot?
It's always pretty flexible. Sometimes they'll send you like the script and then they'll have you like read it. I hate reading scripts. It's like
time consuming.
It's time consuming because there's a way to like read them fast, and I don't think my brain works like that. So it takes a long time for me to read scripts, but it's honestly super helpful because you get such a good sense of like what the big moments are, and like you're like, dude, I really want to be in, for this, this day and that day. There is a good story that my friend, who's also a unit photographer, Justin Lubin, he shoots a lot of, movies, and he shot that movie Get Out, Jordan Peele's Get Out. And the key art is of the main character, Daniel, like sitting in the chair. And he wasn't scheduled that day. Yeah, with a tear, him falling, into the whatever. And so he wasn't scheduled to shoot that day. But because Justin, I don't know if he read the script or the one line, he probably did both, but he definitely saw the one line and was like, dude, what? Falling in the chair, sitting in the chair, paralyzed in the chair, whatever the one line said. He was like, I'm not scheduled that day, but I need to go in that day. And he just went in. And then he was able to capture that image, and they used it for the key art. So it's like stuff like that. So it helps to have these resources and, know what you're getting into, and you want to be as prepared as possible always on anything, right? Any kind of job you have, whether it's photography, or, something else, being on set or something else. It's like, if you're prepared, then you kind of, could go in equipped. I love stories like that,
Yeah, same.
I was like, holy cow, like that's cool. Yeah, it's kind of like the lore behind all this stuff we shoot and film, and so yeah.
But that's what I was saying before about the images, the photos that you take and that are captured on set. They do so much more than just capture those behind the scenes. If they're shared in the right way or in the right places, then they become how we either first engage with that project or how we remember it. Like that
how
photo,
we remember it, right?
Yeah, the photo of Daniel Kaluuya in the tier, that's like when anyone thinks of Get Out, that is the image that they see. It would never have happened if they hadn't.
If Justin never thought like, hey, I should go on set,
Yeah. No, I think it's important because these images they're more than what they appear to be. There's probably thousands like that where people have taken those photos and they've become the hero artwork for that film or that TV show. And that's how then we remember it culturally. That's how we remember it. And those end up on the posters that the kids have on their wall. And then those posters then end up in the scenes of films. They play a major role in the culture. And I don't know if we appreciate that, when we're seeing them for the first time or when they're being taken.
Right. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. You just never know. I mean, sometimes you're like, this could be something, but people ask me that all the time. Like, did you know Euphoria was going to be, as big as it was? And I don't think I did. I just knew this is special. This is different. At least the way they're shooting it is very different. Did you watch all the seasons?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We talked about it. Yeah. You caught up. Yeah, I
caught up. Yeah. Those 2 episodes turned it around for me. I was on the fence, and then those last 2 episodes, I was like, it saved it for me.
The finale for me was nuts. It was just like so emotional. Just I was watching it on like, because our daughter was sleeping. I was on the couch with my wife, and a lot of times we don't even use a TV. I'm like watching it on my iPad with my headphones on, and then like I just start crying, and then and my wife looks up. She's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude." I'm like, it's so
It's
good.
it's so good, but also you know you're connected to the people and the journey that's like your the last 6 or 7 years of
Yeah,
your life,
yeah,
spending time with these people and helping to tell the story. So it's not just the on-screen story, it's the
sure.
whole project for you.
That's a really great point you bring up because a lot of times like that's like imagery for us or for photographers. It's like we're photographers are our own worst editors, you know, because a lot of times we'll be like we'll make selects and we'll pick an image and then people will look at it and be like, why'd you pick that one? It's not that great of an image, but we have such an emotional connection to that image because we remember that day or whatever, you know, it is. It's like I remember Z said something to me that was really funny right before I took this photo and like and then so we have that emotional connection to that photo or memory attached to it. And so yeah. But sometimes it's a good photo, but sometimes it cannot be a good photo, but we still
Hmm.
have this like attachment to it. This is just like one of the breaks I've gotten, like Euphoria became like this cultural thing and I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. And, I was riding that train when it like took off.
And you also have to be, a nice person because it comes across in the photos. I think looking at all of your work there, you can see that trust on the photo and you can see how much they are at ease with you because otherwise you wouldn't have that kind of access and you wouldn't get those kind of reactions. You've built those relationships over years and you've earned that trust.
You got to be a nice person. There's nobody wants to work with a dick, or like somebody that's just an asshole. Like, and there's no point in being that because, we're spending so much time with these people, right? Like you think about on set, like 10, 12 hours a day, 8 times 8 months, you see these people sometimes more than you see your own family. And so everybody just wants to be around, people they like and, you have to be nice. It's just like and no egos, like really check your ego at the door. So yeah, I think all that is important. All that plays into it. So
That's your advice to anyone that wants to do what you're doing is to just check the ego, be nice, build relationships,
work hard, be
work
kind,
hard.
and amazing things will happen. But yeah, we're all like fortunate to be doing what we love doing on set and stuff like that. So, and it's all about, for me, longevity. And that's a big contributing factor, right? Your reputation, I think, precedes you. And if you're like a dick in this industry, it gets around so fast. So don't be a dick, I guess. Yeah, don't be a dick.
That's going to be the title of this.
Don't be a dick. Well, yeah, because going back, it was like how I got started. It was like my dad gave me a bunch of cameras growing up. He never bought me like toys or anything. He handed me his cameras, handed down his cameras, like his old Nikons, and gave me a Mamiya. And then that's how it became a favorite pastime. Like I created this love for film and, taking photos. And then I went to like, fast forward, I went to like uni, but I never finished college. Because I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to move to LA and become a photographer. And I grew up in the suburbs of LA in Orange County and then moved up to LA and then just started, pursuing photography. And the industry went digital then. I remember buying like a Nikon D200 with my mom's credit card. And then she found out later. And then my sister's like, that's identity theft. And I'm like, she's my mom. How is that identity theft? Like, I know her. But my sisters made me sell the camera and pay my mom back. But, and then I met like a girlfriend at the time and she was like my muse. And I took so many photos of her with like just the D200 that my mom bought me and like an old 50mm 1.4 lens from my dad's kit. And that's like the starter kit, right? And just like taking photos on a 50mm of my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. We went apart, married other people, both got divorced on the same year, got back together again 20 years later. And then now we have a family. Yeah, it's crazy. So I have like photos of her that I took at that time, like with the D200. And a lot of it was at the time posted on Flickr. I don't know if you even know Flickr. Do you remember Flickr?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's how most photographers.
That was like the Instagram of the day.
Yeah, for
back in
sure.
the day.
Yeah.
And then when I moved up to LA, that's what I was on all the time. Like just Flickr. They didn't call it DM, but I would like message these photographers and be like, yo, like love your work, love to learn from you. Could I take you out for coffee? You know, and I cold like message so many people. And then this one photographer named Patrick Eccleston got back to me and was like, yo, I take you up on your offer, talk shop with you if you buy me a cup of coffee. And we met up, and then he was like this entertainment photographer that was trying to create, he was like shooting a coffee table book at the time called Faces of Sunset Boulevard. He was a unit photographer. And then, you know, when he wasn't working on set, he would shoot these beautiful lit portraits on Sunset Boulevard of just like regular people living, working, playing on Sunset. And then he eventually made a book out of it. But he was like my first mentor, and he really fast tracked me. Like I helped him with the book by assisting him. And then when he got commercial jobs, like shooting marketing campaigns or whatnot, he would hire me as an assistant on that job. And he fast tracked me, talked to me about the industry, showed me, you know, how it all worked. And then when I got into the union, he threw me this big party and invited all the photo editors. And I immediately started working like after that. And I remember at that party he threw me, he said to me, he's like, you know, the only way you can repay me is if you pay this forward, like help the next person out. So, you know, I've always remembered that. And so anybody that reaches out to me, you know, I will always make the time for them. I'll answer their questions, or, you know, get a coffee with them, talk to them about the industry or whatever, if they're fascinated about it. Because it was through him that I met, you know, his good friend, Matthew Young, who also became a mentor of mine. Like them two really helped fast track me into this, you know, this business and this, you know, industry, and becoming a successful unit photographer. You know, I had to do the legwork and figure it all out. And yeah, but they've always been there, you know, if I had questions or whatnot. And, you know, I'm still in touch with them to this day. So
Are there any cameras or anything that you'd like to shoot? Have you ever shot an X-Pan?
Yeah, I've shot an X-Pan. Jacob from Euphoria, Jacob Elordi, he had an X-Pan from like season 1. He bought a Fuji TX2, which is like the X-Pan equivalent, and then he gave it to me for a day, and so I was like able to shoot some of his scenes on the X-Pan or the Fuji. It's cool, but I much prefer the wide lux. It's just more interesting to me because of the imperfections. I actually shot on Euphoria season 3. I will show you. It's like sometimes you'll see the waves and it's just like the exposure's all kind of off, and like it's interesting. It's been super fun, like doing stuff like that on set, just changing it up a little bit to make it more interesting.
Yeah, like you said, when it's someone else is paying for you to experiment, it's it makes it a little bit sweeter.
You gotta have time to like allow yourself that, you know, freedom to kind of experiment a little bit. Because I'll shoot a lot of long exposure sometimes on set. I'll do like sometimes a roll of it just to see what I get. People are like, what are you doing? Because I'm always like, I take a photo, I'm like this. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but sometimes it'll be a cool image. You'll get streaks, you know? And one of my favorite photos on season 2 of Euphoria was shot on a Fuji GA645 wide. And it's like a giant, you know, point and shoot, you know, camera at point and shoot. And it was a photo of Zendaya, a black and white photo of Zendaya walking her bike out in the middle of nowhere, like an orchard. And I think it was like a mistake. I was at it was like totally closed down to like F22, F16 or something, but I had the flash on, and I didn't intend to shoot it at such a high f-stop because it was like so slow. It was like, I don't know, 2-second exposure or second exposure, and then but I kind of panned with her, and it created this beautiful like, you know, motion blur. But because it was shot at such a high f-stop, it was still very sharp, or sharp enough, but it was just such a beautiful mistake. And another one was of the late great Angus Cloud. He was just standing in front of I think he was standing in the Milk Mart, and it was also like a longer exposure with flash, and I just like dragged it down, and then just the neon sign, you know, behind him like dragged down to his face, and it was just, but you could see his face so clearly, and it was such a great portrait of him. That was like also one of my favorite photos. It's like that one of Z, that one of Angus, and then the key art. Like, oh, if I walked away with those 3 images all season, I'd be happy. It's like cool.
Do you have from any project you've ever done, maybe this is a good thing to end on, and if you don't have one, it's okay. But do you have like one singular favorite photo that you think, like, you know, this kind of sums up my time in the last, you know, 10-15 years?
Oh wow, not a single photo. That's so hard.
Yeah,
I could
I guess it's
probably,
hard.
yeah, that's super hard. And then there's stuff I can't show yet that I feel like it's like, oh, this is sick. But I also feel like it's like an evolution, right? Like going back to saying like we should always reinvent our look and stuff like that. There's a favorite photo from like that time, and then there's a favorite photo from this time, and I'm sure in the future it'll be like another photo. But it's just it keeps changing, and I quite like that. Like it's just never like, oh, this is it. I cracked the code. I don't feel like I ever crack the code. It's always like the code is ever changing and you're just like chasing it, you know? And that's what makes photography, I think, so fun for me, because you could just keep storytelling with imagery, but like in new and fascinating ways, or in different ways. I don't know. Like it's like that for me.
Do you have any like long-term plans or any like goals or any like specific jobs that you want to do in the future, anywhere that you want this to take you?
I like the pivot that I'm making right now, going from stills to, you know, embedded and, you know, shooting motion and stuff like that. I don't have like a 5-year plan. I really enjoy what I'm doing right now though, because it's just like so many different projects, and I feel like I'm always up for new experiences and challenges. I don't feel like, again, like I plateaued in this process of, you know, being a photographer. I'm still like learning, and I'm always like experimenting and, you know, trying new things, and, you know, whether it's using different, you know, cameras or film stocks, or, you know, even with motion, you know, I'll shoot Super 8, but then I'll shoot you know, mini DV. And this last project I shot on Sony cyber shots, like these old point and shoot cameras that could do motion, but the motion surprisingly looks really good, and it's like perfect for 916 for social, and it's like it's just shitty enough to look good.
It's a lot of fun though, isn't it? It sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun to be on all these different projects. And again, you know, it's like you want to work with people that are nice, man, because you're spending so much time with them. And so that's really important to me. And especially, you know, as we get older and we, you know, we all have families and stuff like that. It's like, I love spending time with my family, but if I have to work, I want to work with the nicest people possible, you know? But yeah, just fortunate. I feel really fortunate, and, you know, I appreciate all these opportunities.